Imagine, if you will, a time where diplomats, soldiers, and civilians, their fingernails as clean as a whistle or as dirty as a dugout, found themselves in a game of survival, much like a high-stakes basketball match, against a grand siege by Chinese forces for 55 sultry days. Picture this not as a mere thought experiment, but as an invitation to step into a historical spectacle. Steady yourself as we dive into the riveting narrative of a battle that was played out within the courts of Peking, a story charged with unwavering spirit, grit, and resolve. This is the Battle of the Peking Legation Quarter, a key match in the politically and socially heated tournament of the Boxer Rebellion that has enthralled historians for over a century. As you lace up your sneakers for a journey back to the dawn of the 20th century, we find ourselves in the sweltering, stifling summer of 1900. It was during this turbulent period when the Boxer Rebellion showed its full force, an upsurge of anti-foreign and anti-Christian resentment that spread like a fast break across the court. This upheaval was spearheaded by a secretive society, whispered about in the shadowy corners and hidden tunnels of society. Known in the local parlance as the Boxers, these were the playmakers of Chinese nationalism, their hearts fired up with an unyielding drive to box out what they saw as the foreign imperialist encroachment threatening the culture and sovereignty of their beloved Qing dynasty. Now, here's a buzzer-beater of a fact. These boxers believed they were invincible to bullets, and even claimed that they could take flight. Far from mere rebels, these boxers were spirited patriots. They advanced towards Beijing, then known as Peking, not with blind aggression, but with a clear and unwavering game plan, to cleanse their home court of the encroaching foreign influence, which they saw as a relentless opponent lurking in corner of their sacred grounds. The Peking Legation Quarter, a small district filled with foreign diplomats, military personnel and civilians, became their target hoop. This enclave was the personification of foreign interference, a brazen emblem of the alien team that the Boxers so passionately sought to defeat. The atmosphere was electric, the tension tangible. Fear and determination hung in the air like the final seconds of the fourth quarter, as rumors of the planned siege echoed through the city. The humdrum of the city was overwhelmed by the persistent whispers of anticipation, and dread. The scent of incense mixed with sweat and gunpowder, creating an electrifying blend that was almost as charged as a playoff final. The city was on a shot clock, each player grappling with their strategy as they prepared for the face-off. Every heartbeat echoed a silent prayer, every breath drawn like the last second before On the ominous day of June 20th, much like the start of a thrilling basketball season, the Empress Dowager Cixi, the de facto ruler of China, made a call that would forever change the game of history. She declared war on all foreign powers, initiating a grand match between the old and the new, the East and the West. The next day, the siege against the foreign forces ensconced within the Peking Legation Quarter began, marking the start of a historic basketball season of 55 tumultuous days. For the first few days, the foreign legations were under sporadic fire from Chinese troops and boxers, like a basketball team under constant attack from their opponents. The defenders, a diverse team of soldiers, marines, and volunteers from various nations, fortified their positions, turning the Legation Quarter into a makeshift basketball court. Remarkably, they even resorted to using a giant slingshot to launch food supplies over the enemy lines, a tactic as inventive as a trick shot in a game. By late June, the game had escalated. The Chinese forces launched a full-court press, but the defenders managed to repulse them. Despite being outnumbered and in facing shortages of resources, they showed remarkable resilience, just like a determined basketball team. In the first week of July, a timeout was called. The Chinese offered the foreigners safe passage out of Beijing, but they declined, suspecting it to be a foul play. The game continued, with both teams exchanging fire, but neither scoring significant points. The situation remained relatively unchanged until August 14th, when an international relief force approached Beijing. This spurred the Chinese to launch a massive assault on the Legation Quarter. However, the defenders held their ground, and the Chinese were eventually forced retreat when the relief force arrived in the city. On August 15th, after 55 grueling days, the game was over. The Battle of the Peking Legation Quarter had ended, leaving behind a district scarred by warfare and a legacy that would last for centuries. So what are the key points to remember from this epic basketball season of survival? The battle was a part of the larger Boxer Rebellion, a movement against foreign influence in China. The foreign legations in Beijing were besieged for 55 days, resisting Chinese forces through a combination of strategic defense and sheer resilience. Despite being outnumbered and facing shortages, the defenders held their ground until a relief force arrived. The battle ended with the lifting of the siege and marked a significant event in the history of international relations in China. Next time you find yourself in a gripping game of desire and danger, remember the defenders of the Peking Legation Quarter and their giant slingshot. Until the next game, explore history. As the battle intensified, mirroring the suspense of a down-to-the-wire basketball game, the skies morphed into an ominous shade, and a thunderous roar reverberated across the battlefield. It was as if the creatures from the obscure depths of Chinese folklore had made their grand entrance onto the battlefield, their claws as pristine as a freshly buffed basketball court, or as grimy as a player's jersey post in an intense match. The warriors, left in awe, could only watch as these beasts like dragons, phoenixes, and killins, symbolic of power, rebirth, and prosperity, swooped down onto the field, changing the course of the battle. The defenders, now backed by these magnificent creatures, retaliated with renewed intensity, akin to a basketball team staging a comeback in the final moments of the game. The dragons let out fiery breaths onto the oncoming Chinese troops, while the phoenixes plunged from the skies, their brilliant plumage dazzling the enemy. The killins, symbolic of good fortunes, enhanced the morale of the defending forces, their presence fostering an unprecedented determination among the ranks. The boxers, not to be outdone, rallied their forces, and from the rich archives of their own folklore, summoned their mythical creatures to the battlefield. The battleground soon turned into a spectacular arena of mythical beasts and warriors, each fighting for their beliefs. The battle was no longer a simple clash between civilizations, but a grand clash of mythical beasts and men, as if a riveting basketball match played out on an epic scale. The Battle of the Peking Legation Quarter had taken an unprecedented turn, akin to a historic buzzer beater in a basketball game, a moment indelibly marked in the chronicles of history.